Hello friends, and welcome back to Maple Bay Potager. My name is Faye, and today I thought we would go on a little walk around the gardens, and I'm going to show you what is going on and what we have planted and what is still yet to come. It has been too cold to plant a lot of things. Like I had to cover my tomatoes I've planted from frost the night before last night. And today is June 7th. So when I say it's cold where I live, I'm not lying. These guys could be out here. I should have started them earlier. This is kale and red cabbage and tiara cabbage. But I had them inside until yesterday because the flea beetles are awful this year, and I just wanted those plants to get a little bigger before bringing them out. The peppers are happy to be in bigger pots. The squash are looking ready to be planted. And this pepper, these two peppers might look like they're unhappy, but these are variegated peppers that just have like lighter foliage. And they get purple and white. They're called collage. I might go ahead and plant some cucumbers today. I weeded that bed today. Oh. We have so many tent caterpillars right now. But those are the little watermelons we started. Every single seed I planted germinated, and those were 9-year-old seeds. So don't throw away your seeds just because they're a couple years old. Even if they're a lot of years old, try. Tomatillos take forever. Little squirts. Here's a second round of cucumbers. I started in the seed snails. Kind of crowding out my zinnias. These are the ones from my seed that I saved. I did get a lot to germinate, which I'm really excited about. So I saved those seeds off of a mix of the Queen Line zinnia series. So I don't know what they're gonna look like, but I'm excited. This is the celosia. And sadly, none of Nana's zinnia seeds germinated yet. But maybe, we'll see. Here's my leftover tomatoes and my partner's tomato. Looks like a nursery out here. And then there's this side. So these guys came up just a couple days after planting them, and it was too cold for them to be outside, and I didn't want to bring up extra lights that I wasn't going to use for anything else other than these for a couple days. So they're a little bit leggier than I would like to see, but I'm just going to plant them deep and they'll be fine. And over here, these are, I think, my zinnias in this row. And again, these were Nana's zinnias, none came up. And then these are Oklahoma salmon, another little tent caterpillar. And then our straw flowers. Those are doing okay. These leeks really need to go in the ground, but I did finish planting my onions. So only a few hundred more leeks to go. But it was much easier to plant the seed snails than any other method that I have tried starting onions, including just the single soil block. It was easier to plant out of those seed snails. That is how I will start my onions and my leeks every year. I love it. This celeriac is just waiting. I don't need to. I want to plant my leeks and carrots before I plant my celeriac because they're going in the same bed, and I don't want to step on my celeriac while I'm trying to plant these. Here's my cute little pots. So these are the petunias. I saved seed from my petunias I bought last year. And they were all the same variety, but they were a hybrid variety. So all of these look a little different. And then these are all my Nana's patio pansies. So they're a little mix. Here's another petunia. Has a little bit of kind of dark veining on the inside. And then I have bronze sonnet snapdragons in the middle there. The dahlias I've been threatening to plant today. I think I have decided that I am going to cut this one and try and propagate it. It's just so tall and lanky, it's gonna blow over. So try and propagate it, even though I haven't had a lot of luck. But these ones were looking okay until I dropped them and dumped them over the other day. So I don't know what's gonna happen there. These are the Mingus Tony. All of these are Mingus Tony dahlias, except for this tall one I got at my garden club's perennial exchange. It's not just for perennials, so that is a burgundy is what it was labeled as. So I don't know what that will be. But this is another little Mingus Tony here. That's not a cutting, that was a tuber I just put in this pot when I divided them. But those are all little cuttings from when I cut my dahlias back. And you can see that they are getting bushier. So I don't know, some of these actually look pretty good. So I have hope for those ones. I love these Mingus Tony dahlias, and I will put a picture for you. And over here, this little group, my friend Jackie, a bunch of these are from her garden. So this is all Agastache. These are purple auric. And then there's also some yarrow. And these are, I think she said, cuttings from goji berries. This one's not doing anything yet, but we'll see. And then there's some sea holly. And then these are prairie crocus. Hey, can you back up, please? Thank you. Those are prairie crocus that have already bloomed. I'm hoping to be able to plant some of these seeds once they're mature. And then these plants here are some different native plants. She went to a native plant rescue and got those for me, and I am just so grateful that she did. So most of this will be going out into my little mini meadow space. This box, I threw my back out planting this box, lifting a tiny tray of tomatoes. And so we have had just ridiculous weather. We had plus 32 last week, which is 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And then it's been raining for days and frost warnings at night. So these poor tomatoes have really kind of been through it. I took off all these leaves that I don't know if this is sunburn, wind burn, because we also had 90-kilometer-an-hour winds, or if that's potentially frost on a night when it got colder than I thought it did, because these are up higher on the deck. But I pulled off all of the sad leaves. They will put suckers out. These plants will be fine. They just look a little sad right now. But I have 3 Rosy Falls, which are a hanging basket cherry tomato. So I'm going to let them kind of grow over the side here. This direction is south. And then I have a couple of marigolds and some itty bitty purple opal basil. I really neglected my basil starts this year and a lot of them died. So it's not going to be the best basil year this year. But sometimes that's just what happens. And then this last little box hasn't really started doing much. But the plants look happy, and there are a couple little cute violas from Nana's mix again. Each pot has 3 pansies, 3 violas, and a snapdragon in the middle. This is one of my Nana's peonies that actually my great-grandmother planted at the homestead in the 50s. Sorry, there's a lot of barking dogs and kids and neighbor activity. And that's just what it is to live in a neighborhood. So sorry if you can hear that going on, but if I waited till it was quiet, I would never be able to film outside. If you notice, I do a lot of voiceovers, and that's why. Oh, something else exciting I should show you. First, let's focus. This is, I think, a fat frog tomato is who I put here because they're my favorite. They're a green one ripe variety, and another marigold, and then some sweet basil. Another little shot of the little nursery. Cute, cute, cute. So what I want to show you is, let's see if we can see. That is a blue jay nest right in the tree beside my deck. I feel so honored. I'm so excited to see little baby blue jays. I think we'll start in the raised bed garden here. I've picked all the spinach, left all the cilantro, and I will probably let that go to flower in between my peppers, honestly. And then I'm planning on maybe planting some cilantro along the back of these boxes where they'll be in the shade of the peppers. We'll see if I get to that. These little lettuce and radish beds are looking like I was hoping they would. Very cute. I have a couple of the Rosy Falls basket tomatoes here, and they have basil and a marigold in there as well. I don't know what the variety of the marigolds is. I got them at the plant swap. Isn't that cute? So you can see what I mean about the flea beetles being atrocious this year. They are really doing a number on the radishes. The radishes seem to like it in the ground here. I don't want to speak too soon, but I haven't seen any going to seed yet, so that's good. This is a variety of romaine lettuce called Freckles. Isn't that so pretty? Might be my favorite lettuce. This is the bed of lettuce that just volunteered. I let my lettuce go to seed in this bed last year. And so this just planted itself. This week I came through and pulled plants so that I could plant my snapdragon starts in here. And this is the Tahiti Sunset mix. I'm really excited for these. I've never grown them before. I got them from Moonglow Gardens. I ran out of my freckles starts. So there are little baby ones coming up in here that I started from seed. And yeah, these poor radishes are just getting ate alive. That's a flea beetle there, if you don't know what they look like. There's another couple. And they jump. That's why they call them flea beetles, not because they're fleas. And so here are our sweet pea pots. And I think these are the blue shift. And if you can see, some of those seeds that I moved did germinate. So that's nice. Here's some red lettuce. And I ran out of my Malaga radish seed, and I have a volunteer that I had left in the garden, so I just went and pulled some seeds out of the seed pods that were left on it and tried to plant them here. But you can see the germination was really not great, and I was quite liberal with those, but I did get some. Seeds are so resilient. I really need to take off all this new growth from these Manitoba maples, but the tent caterpillars might do it for me. So you can see our row of sweet peas had excellent germination. And they are growing and happy, and this bed needs to be weeded, but that's okay. I'll get to it. Gosh, I love June. The spinach that I planted to collect seed off of is really tiny and not looking great. So I left this big healthy guy in this bed, and this is where I'm going to plant my dahlias. So this will just be kind of tucked in behind, and that is what I will save seed from this year, hopefully. I might even leave a couple more of these as insurance. I think there might be a tree root. These radishes are real tiny. They might just get too shaded in here. I don't know. It looks like they are starting to root up, though. Look at that. Cute. Here's some more microdwarf pots. So I don't remember. I didn't label these ones. They'll be a surprise. But there's also marigolds and basils. And then this is where we planted our bok choy, and then it got hit the next day with 90-kilometer-an-hour winds. And like I say, it's been 90 degrees and then freezing. So this is trying to go to seed. And I will be harvesting that this week. I do have my runner beans planted along the shed here. I need to, this is just leaning here. I'm not using that as a trellis right now. It's just sitting there out of the way while I was mowing. I don't know where I'm going to put that or what I'm going to use it for. Anyways, I have the runner beans planted here. I still need to set up some trellising. I think I'm just going to use some bamboo stakes and somehow fasten them to the shed. But I will be pulling this bok choy this week. Well, probably today. Now we're over in the in-ground potager space. I haven't cleaned all the dill stems here from last year yet. I had a suspicion that the swallowtails were going to be, like the caterpillars were going to be in there over the winter. So I just left those, and I have seen so many swallowtails. So that is a host plant for them if you didn't know. And yeah, I left those stems there for them. My poor delphinium has delphinium worm. If your delphinium ever starts to get kind of sad at the top like this and kind of black, there are caterpillars that affect delphinium. But caterpillars are a good food source. Delphinium are native to North America. So they are a caterpillar that the birds will eat here. So I leave that for them. Last year the blue jays ate them all. I watched them. This little delphinium here, it blooms, but it sure is just never very happy. And I have some volunteer larkspur that always comes up in between, and a little hollyhock that seated itself here that I just left because that'll be pretty. So let's start over here. This is going to be cucumbers along this fence. My basil didn't do very good. This was going to be a bed of basil, but I think I'm going to let it be dill and poppies. I had dill planted here last year, so I'm sure I will have plenty come up in this bed. And the poppies just seeded themselves here. I do have celeriac planted along the edge. And then I don't know what this is, but it looks so healthy and pretty that I'm leaving it until I find out what this is. But if you know what this is and it's bad, can you please tell me? That's usually how I do things. I give them a chance and then find out if they're bad once they like bloom or easier to identify. Because right now this, I don't know. I guess it does have kind of like carrot leaves. Hopefully this isn't Queen Anne's lace or something. I don't know. If you know who that is, please tell me. I would love to know. Should it stay or should it go? Lots of volunteer poppies. These will be black peony poppies, which are a breadseed poppy. They are so beautiful. They're this really, really deep kind of aubergine color. They're beautiful, beautiful poppies. My favorite poppies. I haven't planted this bed yet. This will be leeks and carrots. And then this little bed fights with the tree roots of this green ash tree. So I don't really do too much over here. I have let chamomile seed itself in this bed. I have some cylindra beets, which are my favorite storage variety and my favorite variety for pickling. They're really long and cylindrical and they get really, really big and they're really delicious. I saved these through the winter and planted them here because beets are biennial, which means they will go to seed in the second year. So I saved these over winter in my cold storage and they are going to seed, and I'm going to try and save these seeds and grow beets from my own seed next year. I'm so excited. And that's also what these onions are. These were the onions that stored the best for me and were our favorite onions. They got huge. So I saved some of the nicest ones. Onions are also biennial. I planted these here and I'm hoping I will get some seed off of those this year. And I'm hoping it will be something similar to what they were because they were a hybrid, so I don't know what I will get. Anyway, it will be an onion, whatever it ends up being. I have some little peppermint coming up here. I know you shouldn't plant peppermint in the ground, but I'm usually really good at killing mint, and I want something that will contend with this tree in this bed. And I love mint tea, so if it takes over, I'm okay with that. If it takes over in the lawn, I love mowing peppermint. It smells so good. These are wild violets, and I just let them kind of do their thing. They don't seem to bother anything, and they're really easy to pull if they're in my way. There's some weeds. I put some of the poppy seed heads that I cleared out of the garden and some of the straw flower seeds over here, hoping that they will seed themselves. And it looks like we have lots of chamomile, lots of little poppies, and some weeds. I don't see any straw flowers yet, but maybe we'll get some. This is the spinach that I planted to save seed from. And this is what I mean by things just struggle in this bed. There is a tree root right here. I know when I was digging these paths out, I couldn't cut through it. It was too big and I didn't want to hurt the tree. So I know there's a tree root that runs right here. I don't know why I chose this spot to try and plant my plants for seed, but that is a good example of, compared to in the raised bed garden, these are sad. I don't want to save seeds off of those, I don't think. Same with my poor little lettuce. So I'm going to have to save a couple of those in the raised bed. The cilantro doesn't look too bad. I might just let the cilantro go to seed in this bed and see what happens. There's a little hollyhock right there. And this little hollyhock has been here a few years and has never bloomed, and I think it might be that it's just not happy. So in this bed, there's a couple of leeks that have lived here for a couple years, and I just saved seeds off of them because leeks are related to onions and they are biennial also. And they will survive our cold winters here. So they come back. Those are, I didn't grow leeks last year. So they're from the year before or possibly the year before that, but they've been there a few years. They're tough. But this bed has onions and carrots. So you can see here, I have the rows of onions, and in between, I left little trenches. That is where my carrot seed is. So I like to just drag a stick in the soil, make a little trench, place my carrot seeds in the trench, and not backfill it. It gets backfilled enough when you water. And then I find that those seeds don't move around too much. I know where they're planted and where I need to water. And they those little trenches hold water a little better, I find, than just having them sown on a smooth surface that dries out quickly. Looks like I have volunteer carrots. Well, not volunteer. Carrots that didn't germinate last year that are coming up there. So that's a bonus. I don't see any carrots that I planted this year. Oh, I do. There's one right there. Cute. Happy birthday, baby. So those are starting to come up. We've had lots of rain. They should come up no problem. The soil's been warm from the heat too, so I don't think I'm going to have a problem with things germinating. Carrots can be finicky that way. You got to keep water on them. You do not want to let that soil dry out because they are just in that top layer. And my soil is quite sandy, so I can struggle with that when it's dry. Here I have my mushroom pole beans along where these bamboo stakes are. And I can see that they are starting to germinate under the soil. Oh, look, there he is. A little bean. So these are a pole bean that are very prolific. I grew them for the first time last year. And they're called mushroom beans because they taste like mushrooms. And they actually do. I didn't believe it, and I had to try them. And they actually taste like kind of umami, like a mushroom. Love them. I grew so many last year and saved them for seed. So I'm going to eat them all this year. And I also have under the trellis some celeriac plants that again kind of took a bit of a beating with the heat and the cold. So I'm really hoping they don't try and go to seed. I want nice big bulbs on those. Celeriac is also called celery root. It is related to celery and it tastes like celery, but it is different from celery. These plants will grow a big, ugly, gnarly bulb above the soil, and they store really, really well without needing any kind of preservation. They can just go into cold storage and they'll store as well as things like potatoes and carrots. And they taste like celery, but you use them like a root vegetable. They're a bulb. And so they're really, really good mashed or in soups. They're so good. And they're really expensive at the grocery store where I live. So I have some more here. I wanted to grow lots this year because, like I say, they're expensive and they store really well and very easily. So very good crop, and they're cold hardy. This bed is all potatoes, and I'll show you how I planted those. I have the 4 rows of potatoes spaced about a foot apart, square foot gardening, and I will actually be putting kind of a little fence around them to kind of corral them in because potatoes can get really tall. And I will be really heavily mulching this once those plants start coming up. But I want to wait until I see them breaking through the soil, and I don't see any yet. So on this side, we have my tomato bed. And these poor little plants have really been through it. I probably should have just waited to plant them. But that, I think, is a mix of sunburn from the heat, even though I hardened these plants off, mixed with the wind and then the cold. These plants are just stressed, but all of the new growth looks pretty good on these plants. So I'll wait for them to get a little bit bigger, and then I'll pull these damaged leaves off, and these plants will be fine. Tomatoes are tough. It's not ideal, but they'll be okay. If you notice, I have sticks here next to the stem of each of these plants. That is because I have cutworms. Cutworms are caterpillars that live in the soil and pupate in the soil and become moths or butterflies. But instead of a cocoon that's hanging off of something like a lot of us are familiar with, they pupate in the soil. So you may have come across little caterpillar cocoons in the soil and just not known what they are. But that's what a cutworm is. And so I'm trying to foster an ecosystem that is good for caterpillars. I don't want to be killing them, but I also don't want them to be killing my tomatoes. So if you put little sticks, they can't really get around the plant. They wrap themselves around the plant and then mow it down. And they have a harder time doing that. You can do this if they're getting your beans. Just stick a little stick down beside them. So as my beans are germinating, I will be doing that. It's a little time consuming, but it's an easy organic method to protect your plant from those guys and still allow those little caterpillars to grow up to be helpful pollinators or food for the birds. I had a row of spinach in the middle here, and I have picked all of that back. These plants are going to seed, or bolting, it's also called, and that's just, they're going to produce a flower. Cold crops, greens, when they start to do that, they start to taste bitter, so I don't like them to eat them anymore, and so that's the point when I know I'm going to remove those. I have some volunteer lettuce here, and I'm just letting go, and I'll cut those back when they're ahead, like when they form a head. So here's our poor little fallen soldier. But honestly, I say that, like honestly these plants look pretty good, but that one looks pretty stressed. This one looks pretty good. This is a potato leaf variety from Karen Olivier called Taiga. And if I remember correctly, this one is a green tomato, but it has red and I think maybe yellow stripes. So I ended up planting 22 vining tomato plants in this bed, and then underneath I have the micro dwarf tomatoes, and I think I have 40 in this bed. I don't. If you're wondering what the soda bottles are for, this patch of the garden is kind of at the top of a slope here and is the mound, as well as there's quite a thick canopy of the maple trees above it. And even though I had been watering the garden while it was so hot and dry this spring, even before I had anything planted, this I noticed when I was planting these tomatoes, this soil was like hydrophobic. It was bone dry. So I have punched holes in the sides of these soda bottles and just buried them in the soil and have been filling those. So you can see on this side the plants are all perked back up. But this one right here still isn't looking so happy, so I may even just bury another soda bottle here. I don't know though, that soil feels good and wet, so maybe this guy's having other issues. We will see. We'll see what happens. So beside our vining tomato bed slash micro dwarf tomato bed, we have our bush tomatoes, our determinate varieties. Well, variety. This year I'm only growing the one variety, so these 6 tomatoes here are all Sleeping Lady dwarf tomatoes. Just gonna step over my garden hose mess. I was mowing the lawn this morning, so I pulled my hose out of the way and haven't put it away yet. On this half of this bed, I still have to weed, but this is where my tomatillos are gonna go. So this bed is not planted yet. I'm gonna have another trellis here, and I will be planting the purple magnolia tendril snap peas. They're a tall vining pea, and they have purple flowers and purple pods, and they're a sugar snap pea. They're really good and really pretty. And under that trellis I will have the celeriac, and then the rest of this bed will be leeks and carrots. And then this is where the tomatillos are going. Right here I have a little trellis with some sugar snap peas that don't get very tall. So these are the ones that I started in my seed snail, and they're starting to take off here. And then I have another little row planted that has started to sprout to where the sticks are. And probably in a week or two, I will plant some more to the end of the trellis. So we have a few different successions. My little dog Tulip loves sweet peas. Snap peas. So most of those will probably be for her. And we're trying to have peas all summer long for her. This is my perennial wild streambank hollyhock. This is a native hollyhock. So this is the one I split and took over to the perennial bed, and you can see this one is doing just fine. The rest of this bed, I'm going to be planting my cylindra beets, which are my beets that I use for cold storage and for making beet pickles. My raspberries, you can see are growing through the fence. I have a raspberry patch on the other side of the fence in the mini meadow. And I will be moving these little suckers back out where they belong. This is another peony from my Nana. This is one of the white heritage ones with the pink in the middle. The one that my grandmother planted. Or my great-grandmother planted, rather. This bed, I don't know if in the sun you can really see them, but there's onions and carrots in this bed as well. And then I have another trellis here. I'm not finished building it, but this has, I think this is where I planted my pale lavender beans. They're a really pretty drying bean that was really prolific for me last year. And you can see on either side of this path I have celery planted. The bed along the back there has asparagus and walking onions. On this trellis I have my Viola di Asiago beans. They're a really pretty purple drying bean. So next to the beans here, this is all potatoes. I have a little patch of volunteer dill because I had dill planted along this side last year. These are some bags of leaves from my neighbor that I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet. I don't know if they spray or not, so I'm leery to just spread them willy-nilly around the garden. So they've been shoved to the side out of the way while I mowed the grass here, but if you're wondering what that is. This bed here, I have left a space. There is more volunteer dill coming up, but I am going to be planting cabbages here with straw flowers. And then the rest of this bed I have planted with golden beets, bull's blood beets, and early wonder tall top beets, I think is the other variety in here. So small beets that we will mostly be eating fresh, though they will store for a little while if you need them to. And they have started to come up here, which is nice to see. Oh, I see a nice bull's blood beet there. They're neat. They have really, really red leaves. So they make really pretty salad greens as well. I love beet greens as salad greens. And here is the final peony that lives in the backyard. This one also came from Nana's house. So it was moved here last year too. So it probably won't bloom. So this is my perennial garden. And most of this stuff I have started from seed. The strawberries in here I got runners at the perennial swap a few years ago. The peonies were, started from tubers, not seed. The chives I got from someone, I don't remember where they came from now, but I didn't start those from seed. But pretty much everything in here will say I started from seed or I got as a gift or a trade. So we have, these are Lisbon bunching onions that are starting to bloom. I love allium flowers. I just took a bunch of strawberry runners out of this bed. Show you where I moved them to. And there are some bee balm plants back here. Some Siberian Bergania. Mountain ash trees that grew here from seed that the birds planted. This is I identified it this year. It's a native knotweed. So it's not invasive. It's not Japanese knotweed. This one is native. Isn't that neat? And another peony. And then back here are some raspberries that don't really get a lot of sun, but they do produce a bit. And then we have oregano and a couple of columbine plants that are getting ready to bloom. I was all excited. I thought that all of these were penstemon. They're not. I think this is forget-me-not. So I think I'm gonna pull those and replace them with penstemon that I have started in these milk jugs here. Look at this cute little strawberry with the pink flowers. It's called roseberries. Chives are starting to bloom. There's also garlic chives in these beds that are starting to put on little scapes. They'll flower too, and they have blue flowers. They're so pretty. I planted violas and pansies and the strawberry runners. Along the front of this bed. All the way down. Oh, the sun's coming out. Look at the size of this peony. I planted it here last year. I moved it from a different spot in the yard where it wasn't getting enough sun. I think it's happy over here. A little viola blooming. Cute. And this is a snapdragon that froze. I don't know if you can see at the bottom there. Most of it died back. That one looks like it's one of the ones that froze too. I think I planted those 3 after the fact. They were inside during the freeze, but I had planted a bunch of extras out here. And they survived, which is amazing because it got down to like -20. In the middle there's some thyme. This is a Chinese aster. And another columbine that I started from seed last year. It's gonna bloom for the first time this year. And these are some more snapdragons. Most of the snapdragons in this bed are a mix called Tetra Ruffle Supreme. So they're a mix of colors. And I have a bunch of them in here. I'm gonna step in here carefully. This poor little thing. Right there is a heuchera that I planted in a different spot last year, and this spring I noticed something was ripping the leaves off of it. So I don't know if it was the squirrel thinking it was in its way, but I moved it and it's putting on some new growth, but it looks pretty sad. This is a perennial rudbeckia that is 3 years old this spring. I started it from seed 3 years ago and it has not bloomed yet. This is the biggest it's ever gotten, so maybe there's hope. I have 3 echinacea left here. 2 died. I used to have 5, so that sucks. And this is a perennial cornflower, and it is getting ready to bloom soon. Even those flower buds are so pretty. Another not penstemon. I don't know if I showed you, but behind the flamingo there are more columbine that are 3 years old this year. All of the columbine in this bed are black barlow columbine. There is lamb's ear tucked in there. The tulips have finished blooming, so I have cut the flower buds off. And then back here, I need to trim this maple back. But I have Agastache. These ones are the purple, and then that one right there is a white one. And then there is a little sedum under here. That hasn't bloomed yet, but maybe it will this year. I also decided to plant my rosemary in this bed this year. You can see I have an iris there. More snapdragons. This time is 2 years old now, so it might flower this year. These irises are going to bloom for the first time. I got them at the perennial swap last year. I don't know what color they are. Some of these columbines don't look like they're gonna bloom this year, but it does look like they're feeding something. Some little worms of some kind. Little rosemaries. More snapdragons, another iris that is getting ready to bloom also. This is another peony that I moved here last year, and it is huge. It might actually flower this year. Which peonies, it's normal for them after you move them to take a couple years to establish before they actually will bloom again. So I would expect it to look more like that. But these 3 came from my Nana's place last year. Oh, this columbine is gonna bloom. And there's a little ladybug. I have a whole bunch of larkspur that reseeded in this bed. A sage. I'm going to need to thin these poppies. It looks like there's a borage there. And some straw flowers maybe? And then more Chinese asters. That's another patch of poppies, and so I mixed a whole bunch of different kinds of poppies together over here. These are some flag irises that I got at the perennial swap this year, and it looks like they're gonna bloom. These are some delphinium I moved over here last year that are getting ready to flower for the first time. Oh my goodness, this is very exciting. I planted this pack of larkspur from my Nana over here, and it looks like there's some coming up. So that's very exciting. They might be from my larkspur that I had in here last year. I think they're rocket larkspur. But we'll see when they flower what color they are. because this was a mix of, I think, like pinks and purples and whites. I think this is a Rudbeckia. I'm kind of right in it, but back up here. It looks like a tomato. The honeysuckle is blooming really nice this year, and the bees love it. I think this might be a verbena. This is a leek. And here I'm just killing more grass. I have cardboard down and then mulch on top. Just extending this bed slowly and without tilling anything where possible. Here is another flag iris I got this year. Very excited to see these. Gonna bloom. This is a double echinacea that I'm hoping will bloom for the first time this year. And I have some lupins here, and one of them has a flower bud. I have planted so many lupins and have never gotten one to flower yet, so that is very exciting to see. In the back here, I moved my perennial native hollyhock. I divided it and tried to move some over here, even though that's not advisable because it has a taproot. It planted itself in my vegetable garden, so it's not in a good spot. So I'm happy to see that this is looking good. I don't know if it will flower this year, but I think it will establish, and hopefully I will have one over here, and that means I can move the rest of the other one out of my vegetable garden. And then I have some biennial hollyhocks that I also moved out of the vegetable garden last year. And hopefully they will bloom this year. That'll be really pretty. This is an evening primrose that is putting up its flower stalk. This is a patch of sea holly, and they're starting to put up their flower stalks as well. There's a teeny tiny little columbine over here. And then I noticed the other day, I have some honeywort volunteers popping up. There's another one over there. I don't know if you can see it. I moved some red amaranth volunteers from the vegetable garden over here, and they're establishing, it looks like. I also cut down the seed head in the fall and moved it over here because I wanted amaranth over here, and I can see there's a whole bunch of little red sprouts there. So I'll have to thin those. This is a Liatris coming back. This I started from seed last year. I started most of these things from seed last year. And everything's looking happy. Over here we have my white lilac behind my little bird water slash pollinator waterer. So I have a wash tub, well, a couple wash tubs, and this one's filled with rocks, and not all of the rocks are submerged. That is for pollinators, bees, butterflies, all that to land on. And then I have some bigger rocks for the birds to land on so that nobody drowns in there. Here's our stump we're murdering slash where we will be planting our watermelon. And the white lilac has established here well, it seems. It bloomed this year. We got a lot of rain, so they don't look great, but they smell good. This little rhubarb tried to flower, so I ripped the flower stalk off. But that My friend started from seed and gave me a few years ago. This one I got a chunk given to me, and she is ready to be harvested. Need to do something with that probably today. Cute. Our little flower bed by the compost bin is doing good. Some of these Swiss giant pansies have started to bloom. How pretty is that? Bed needs to be weeded, but otherwise it's looking good. Look at that one. So pretty. Oh, and another one. Cute. And here's our winter sowing jugs. I opened them up this week. I usually like to wait until June because sometimes we have freak hailstorms. I would have left these closed longer, but the plants got too big. You can see some of them were against the edge and getting burned. But they'll bounce back. All the new growth in there looks good. And these are my leftover pansies. But once I get all those other starts on the deck planted, it'll be time to pull grass and plant these in the meadow. So over on this end of the bok choy bed, soon to be winter squash and pumpkin bed, I have some pots. This one just has some volunteers in it for now. This is a winter squash, and I don't know what it is. It just volunteered. And these are some little volunteer lettuce. I think this is going to be the pot I put my friend Renee's lilac sucker into that I'm finally going to bring her. These are bronze sonnet snapdragons, and then I left a space in the middle. I am going to be planting some of the celosia in this box and in this box. And this also has bronze sonnet snapdragons in it. This is my tray of lettuce that I started for picking inside that's still going strong. Here's our turquoise lagoon sweet peas. The sun is coming out. Here's another pot with a microdwarf tomato, marigold, and basil. So that is where all the gardens are at. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned to see how everything grows this year. Can't wait to see you on the next one. Bye, friends.